Hi, and welcome to week 15 of A to Z. We've got some fun things going on today. We have James Anderson. He's going to give us a little talk about where Ohio animals go in the wintertime. And then we're going to get some materials that we put in your pack to make a little diorama. And that'll be fun because you can make a scene of how you think the little animals in Ohio spend the winter. We've also got some new stuff in our workbooks. And what else? We've got a lot of reviewing to do, so we'll get started. Ready to sing our song? It's called Great Big Sun.
Early in the morning before you get up, Mama bakes the cakes, she cooks them up, and she puts them in a pan, flips them all she can, spreads them with a butter jam before you get up. Early in the morning before you get up, Daddy kisses your cheeks to get you up, says brush your hair before you sit in the breakfast chair, tell Papa about all your cares before you get up. Early in the morning, just when you get up, you look out the window to see what's up and behind the trees. What is it that you see? Sure looks funny to me before you get up. But you say, oh my gosh, it's a great big sun, it's a great big sun. And you say, oh my gosh, it's a great big sun. And you say, oh my gosh, it's a great big sun, it's a great big sun. And you say, oh my gosh, it's a great big sun. Early in the morning you munch, munch, munch when you run to the bus. Don't forget your lunch. Say, how do you do? I'm happy and so are you. And I love you, love you, love you, love you, I do. Early in the morning when you go to school, you mind your manners, don't forget the rules. You raise your hand and you play in the sand. Say, yes, I, yes, I, yes, I, yes, I can. And you say, oh my gosh, it's a great big sun, it's a great big sun. And you say, oh my gosh, it's a great big sun. And you say, oh my gosh, it's a great big sun, it's a great big sun. And you say, oh my gosh, it's a great big sun. And you say, oh my gosh, we're all just great big suns. And you say, oh my gosh, it's a great big sun.
I'm going to review some more of our capital letters with our wooden pieces. So I pulled some random letters out here. I'm going to show them to you, and then we're going to build them. So what letter is this? This is an S. So let's build an S. Remember how? We start at the top, it's a small curve, and a small curve. And we have the letter S. Our next letter is, I'm going to show it to you, it's an R. Let's build an R. Big line, little curve, and a little line. We have the letter R. I'm going to show you another letter. It's this letter, Z. Let's build a Z. Remember how? Takes a big line and two little lines, right? One horizontal, one vertical, and one horizontal. The letter Z. Our next letter is what? F. Can you build an F? It takes one big line and two little lines. They go like this. We have the letter F. Okay, my next quiz is this. What's this letter? G. Can you build a G? Let's try it. Takes a big curve, doesn't it? A big curve. And two little lines. G. Our next letter, and our last letter is this. What's this? This is an N. Can you build this one? Takes three big lines. One straight, one slanted, and one straight. This is an N. Keep practicing your capital letters. We're going to start in on our lowercase. We're going to work in our school book. So you want to get that out and turn to page 73. That's a 7 and a 3 down here in the corner. I'm going to draw a map man in our workbooks. I'm going to use a black crayon because I think you can see it better, but you can pick any color you want. They started it for you over here with a circle and a rectangle. So let's start there. That's Tracy's head. It's a big circle. And his body is a rectangle. And I'm going to put some ears on them. They're little curves, aren't they? Inside his head. And some eyes. They're little circles. And his nose is a little circle, isn't it? And his mouth is a little curve. Next, we're going to put on his arms, which are big lines, aren't they? Big line, big line. I'm going to do his legs next because they're also big line, big line. And his feet are little lines. Now we're going to tackle his hands. Can you do his hands? They got 5 fingers. So can we make loops? Loops look like his fingers. How about that? We'll try one over here. Loop, 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 loop. There's his hands. Let's do something fancy. Let's give him a hat. What kind of hat do you want? I'm going to put a top hat on mine. You can put a cowboy hat on, or a stocking cap, or a bonnet. What else should we put on him? I'm going to put some buttons on him. And maybe some pants. He's going to wear shorts. You can decorate yours any way you want to. We'll move on. We're going to review some letters. Whoops, my crayon. Today, and talk about lowercase letters. If you want to turn to this page, it's 74 and 75. First, we're going to say the alphabet, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. So let's go through it. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. The first thing I want to ask you, do you notice that some of the letters, the lowercase letter looks exactly like the uppercase letter? So we are going to go ahead and circle all that we can find that look like that. Does D? No. E? F? G? Nope. H? Not I, not J, not K, L. Nope, nope. How about this one? The lowercase o looks exactly like the capital O. How about P? They're alike too, aren't they? Q? Nope. R? No. How about S? Those letters look exactly alike. One is big and one is small. T? How about U? I'm going to say yes. How about V? Yes. W? They're the same. How about X? It's also the same, isn't it? Y? Yeah. And Z. So these are going to be the easy ones to learn because you already know how to make the capital. Now you're going to make the lowercase, and it's going to look just like the capital. Let's see, what else? Can we say the sounds? How about A? B? B? C? K? D? D? E? F? F? G? G? H? I? J? J? K? K? L? O? M? M? N? N? O? P? P? Q? Qu? R is S? S? T is T? U is V is V? W is W? X is X? Y is Y? Z is Z. Keep practicing these letters, the ones we've circled, because these are the ones we're going to work on first, because they are the easiest ones and they look just like their capitals. So we will start writing our lowercase letters next week.
Hi everybody, this is Naturalist James Anderson from the Marion County Park District. Hopefully you're doing well, keeping safe, keeping warm. So again, welcome to another episode of Naturals Lessons with me, Naturalist James Anderson. And today we're going to be talking about how do they live here during the winter season. So, you know, Ohio's not always the funnest place to live in, especially during the winter time, because it's always very cold, very snowy, very icy. But we're definitely going to be talking about hibernation, migration, and how do they tough it out. We'll also be talking about some fun ways on how you can help your local wildlife out. So I like to thank the Perry Cook Memorial Library, which is located in Morrow County. They kind of asked me to do this episode for them for their preschool program, the A2Z. My son was a part of that program. And so I said, sure, I'll help you guys out. So I know I've made a episode way back, probably 2 or 3 years ago, about this, but I kind of condensed it down for preschool age students. So I hope you guys enjoy the program. So you may be wondering, what is hibernation? So hibernation is a long period when animals go to sleep during the winter season. So you probably guys like taking naps, right? During the day. Well, these animals again take a long winter's nap because during the winter season, there's not a lot of food out in the wild, is there? So yes, there may be some nuts and some berries, but other than that, there's really not a lot available. So you either have to tough it out, you may have to move away or migrate, or you may have to hibernate. So when these animals are hibernating, their body is not shut down completely, but it's very slow. So a lot of them, their heart rate when they're active during the summertime, it goes do 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 do, and then when it's hibernating, they just go very, very slow. So you adults who are watching, here's a fun fact. Did you know when groundhogs are active, their heart rate's about 110, 120 beats per minute, but when they're hibernating, it's about 4 to 5 beats per minute. It seems like they're barely alive, right? But yeah, they're still able to keep functioning. And also to adults, they're like groundhogs, their body temperatures actually go down to just above freezing. So that's pretty cool. Now, not a lot of our wildlife can do that, but some like groundhogs can. Some of the examples of some of the wildlife that hibernate here in the state of Ohio are bears, groundhogs, bats, reptiles, amphibians, fish, and some insect species. And probably one of our best hibernators we have here in the state of Ohio is a painted turtle. You usually see these guys sometimes out on the road during the summertime. So painted turtles, they're pretty special. So they actually hibernate down in the bottom of a pond or a wetland. And you're probably wondering, well, how do they breathe? So their lungs are pretty good size, but they actually, and here's a fun fact, I know a lot of you guys will think this is funny, but they actually can absorb some of the oxygen. Now the oxygen's a little bit different in the water than it is in the air, but they actually can absorb some of the oxygen through their butts. But the technical name is actually called the cloaca. And but yeah, it's really interesting on how painted turtles do that. And but as they're hibernating, their muscles are going to get really, really stiff. And so hopefully kind of late winters, early spring day, if it's nice and sunny, they got to get out. They got to get out in the sun, because if they don't, they get a really, really bad muscle cramp. Have you had a muscle cramp before? It's not fun, is it? Well, try imagining having a muscle cramp lasting for about 2 or 3 months or longer. So now that we have talked about hibernation, what it is, and some of the examples, but where do wildlife hibernate? Well, this cool little picture shows about some of the wildlife hide in different places. As you can see, depending on what kind of wildlife you are will mean where you might go. So some of the wildlife may go down deep into the ground. Some might stay right at above ground level. Some might actually stay up in the snow covering. And some, like turtles, may be able to hibernate underneath water. So now that we have talked about hibernation and some of the examples of wildlife that hibernates in the state of Ohio, now I kind of want to talk about how do they get ready for hibernation? So I know you're probably saying, well, that's easy, you just take a nap. Well, you can, but you gotta remember, during the hibernation time, these animals aren't going to be moving a lot. So what they have to do during the fall time, this is when they're very, very busy, they're going to be eating. Now I know you're going to be saying, well, I can eat and I can take a nap, but as they're eating, they're gaining a lot of that fat. So as they're sleeping or hibernating during the winter season, they're able to burn off of that fat, so they don't have to constantly go out in the cold for looking for food, because during the fall there's a little bit more food for wildlife, rather it is natural or in our yards or on other people's property. So this is time when you're going to see animals like groundhogs and bears. They're going to just be eating and eating and eating. And also too, you're going to be seeing them very, very active. They're going to be out there looking for food. And this is a really good time to see a lot of groundhogs around your yard or around your neighborhood or your parks or wherever you can find groundhogs. Now, bears we don't really have in Morrow or Marion County. They're more in northeastern Ohio, Cleveland, and southeastern Ohio around Hocking Hills. That's where most of the bears are in the state of Ohio.
So now we're going to talk about migration.
So migration is when an animal has to move from point A to point B. So we have a lot of animals that will travel hundreds, even thousands of miles to get to their destinations. Because as we kind of talked about, during the winter season, there's not a lot of food out there. So these guys have to travel to usually warmer places. So southern United States, South America, those are just some of the examples of some of our migrational routes that a lot of our wildlife do, like monarch butterflies, some dragonfly species, and of course a lot of our birds. A lot of you guys might see birds like hummingbirds in your backyard, and next thing you know it, they're gone. Geese you'll see flying in a V shape. They're heading down south for the most part. We do have some that stay during the winter time, but most of all these guys, again, they don't want the cold. They want to be in warmer areas so they can find food a lot easier than what they would do right now here in Ohio.
So next we're going to talk about toughening it out for the winter season.
So when you hear me say toughen it out, you're probably, well, what does that mean? So we talked about migration and hibernation, but we really haven't talked about toughening it out. So some of our wildlife, like mammals, so that would include like squirrels and chipmunks and cocktail rabbits and deer. Those are just some of the examples. So a lot of these guys, what they do during the fall season, as it's getting cooler, their fur is going to get thicker and thicker. So if you guys have a pet dog, especially if they spend a lot of time outside, kind of pay attention to their fur. What's happening? Again, it's just getting more thick. It's just like the coat, kind of like I'm wearing. And again, it keeps them warm. And the semi-aquatic animals, so the beavers, the otters, the muskrats, they're also gaining, again, a lot of that dense fur, but they're getting that top fur that's getting very oily, so it keeps them very dry and doesn't get their skin wet. Because you've probably been inside a bathtub or a pool or something, and then as soon as you get out, you get really cold. Well, again, those types of wildlife don't want to get cold, especially during the winter season. But some of our wildlife do some cool things with their fur. Now, they can't automatically say, hey, I want to change the color of my fur. Their bodies say, okay, we need to change because we need to camouflage. I bet you all have heard of camouflage or camo, right? It's that pattern, the greens and browns, and sometimes other colors, and blend in so you can match your environment or your background. So some, like our weasels and snowshoe hares, they go from usually a brown color to almost a completely white color. So that's pretty cool that they're able to do that. Now, we do have some wildlife, as I mentioned earlier, that kind of tough it out. So they stay pretty active for a good chunk of the winter, but when it gets really cold, they gotta hunker down, rather in their nests or underneath a log or a tree, or sometimes your house, and they kind of stay there for a little bit of time until it warms back up. I know this is a new word for a lot of you kids and even adults, but some animals actually go through a temporary hibernational state called torpor. And again, that just basically means a temporary hibernation period, just when it's really cold out, and then when it warms up, again, they're active again. But some of our examples of wildlife who do that are raccoons, opossums, squirrels, chipmunks. So a lot of people don't realize we only have just a very few wildlife that really do hibernation, but a lot of them again do that torpor.
So here I'm underneath a log, and as you can see, all these little shavings. Here's just my stick, my pointer. These shavings that some type of critter is trying to get ready for the winter time. Also, too, look at these nuts. They're being chewed on. So these guys might be again gaining fat for the winter time. So again, they want to able to burn off that fat during the cold winter season. So some of our wildlife, like squirrels and chipmunks, they'll actually will store a lot of acorns, hickories, buckeyes, and they'll put them underneath logs. Sometimes they'll actually bury them underneath the ground. And we used to think they used their nose to find the nuts that they buried, but we actually found out they're actually very good at remembering where they put them. And but just like people, they do forget. And if they forgot the nut that they buried, guess what? It grows into a tree. So I like calling squirrels and chipmunks volunteer tree planters. So we get acorns and we get hickories and buckeyes. So without those kinds of animals, our forests or our world would look very different.
So another way on how these animals may have to tough it out is they may actually have to switch their diets. An American robin is a great example of that. As you see in this picture, this robin is eating an earthworm, which they typically eat during the spring, summer, and early fall season. Well, during the winter season, there's not a lot of earthworms available. So the ones that do stay here during the winter time, some do migrate. Again, they may have to switch their diet from earthworms to seeds or berries. Again, there's different kinds of wildlife that will do that as well, switching what's basically available during the winter time. Well, you might be asking yourself, what can I do to help out the wildlife in my backyard during the winter season?
Well, if you like feeding birds, or if you have parents, grandparents, neighbors, friends, other family members that like feeding birds, encourage them to do so. Because again, during the winter time, there's not a lot of food sources out there. So feeding your birds will really help them out. Of course, you can go to places like Walmart, Tractor Supply Company, Menards. I mean, I just could go on and on. A lot of different stores that offer bird seed. And there's seed, there's suet cakes. There's all sorts of things that you can find to help your local birds. Now, I know the Christmas season is going to be coming up. So after you're done with your live trees, some of you might use live trees that you put in your living rooms or other places around your homes. Instead of throwing them away or burning them, you actually, if you have a large property, you can kind of cut off the branches and then you can kind of put them in a pile. That's what actually is called brush cover, and that helps some of our wildlife like songbirds and rabbits and sometimes foxes. So that can definitely help them out. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this program. Hopefully you learned about what do some of our local wildlife, what do they do during the winter season? Again, a little recap. We talked about that some of our wildlife do hibernate. We have some that do tough it out, and we do have some that migrate. So pay attention this winter. I know sometimes winter's not always the fun season like summer, but wildlife are active. You just got to keep your eye out. And as I mentioned in the video, there are some fun ways on how you can help your local wildlife on your property. Well, guys, again, I hope you enjoyed the program. Have fun, be safe, but most of all, go out and explore your Marion County parks. And I also like to thank the Prairie Cook Memorial Library for reaching out to me to do this program. I'll see you guys next time with Natural Lessons with me, Naturalist James Anderson. Bye, everybody.
We'd really like to thank James Anderson for going out in the woods today and showing us and telling us all about the animals. In your packs, you have a cereal box or a cracker box, and inside are some little paper animals and some cotton ball for snow and some pipe cleaners. You can use however you want. Let me show you what I did. And you can do anything you want. You can use these materials that we gave you. You can use some of them. You can use something you have at home, something you could find outside. This is mine. And what I did was cut a hole in the side of the box and then bent it down. And that helps so it won't fall over. And then I cut a little magazine picture out and stuck it in the back. I don't know if you can see it very well. And I pasted my snow on the front here. I got some twigs outside to make a tree. And then I stuck my little rabbit here and behind these weeds. And my owls up here. And my little foxes over here. So this is what I think goes on in the wintertime. Now you guys can do anything you want. I would like you to take a picture of it and send it to me so I can put it in the newsletter for next month. Or we can show them at our Zoom meetings. So you can get started, and I'll show you how mine looks. There you go. You can do anything you want. So I'll be looking forward to seeing those.